Thank you all for joining us this evening as we start the Creativity and Tech
Much better.
panel. Last year, we introduced the platform to establish a simple but important message. Creativity and technology are not separate worlds, they are increasingly shaping each other. This year, we take the conversation a step further as technology continues to transform how creative work is produced, distributed, consumed by creators, and how we do not only create, but we also sustain creative careers in the digital space. So, our topic for this session is sustaining creative careers in the digital age, leveraging technology for ownership. Brush up a bit because they've told us they might kick us out. I joke, but yes. So, we'll start this evening with Kalada Briggs, who is a drone pilot, digital creator, and a whole lot that you heard. Kalada, technology has opened up new opportunities for creators to reach audiences and generate income. From your experience, what opportunities have had the greatest impact on your career?
Internet is a very big place. We have over 7 billion users monthly, and I've leveraged that opportunity to sell my content. So basically, I'm into stock photography.
Not stock markets.
Back end has a lot of people looking for what Africa looks like. They want to see what Africa looks like. So I've leveraged that as a means to sell different stories and to sell different stories basically.
Okay, so with Innocent Chikezi, I'm going to ask you two questions in one, multiple choice. As a visual artist, how has technology changed the way you create, showcase, and connect with your audience? Also, you've experienced unauthorized reproduction of your work. What does that
be about the earliest protected basic classic?
All right. Creativity is something that is inborn. As an artist, first of all, you must have the talent. Most people draw from childhood. But in the olden days, when we first started, like some years back, before the birth of technology, we depended solely on probably word of mouth and the physical galleries, and people will have to tell other people about your great talent and all that kind of stuff. But today, it's no longer like that. You can just stay in your small little studio apartment and you paint and you record yourself throughout the process, and then you post it online, and before you know it, someone in America is seeing what you're doing. People can now connect worldwide, and then not only that, you can also do video and picture editings of
Your productions and make it more interesting architectures and
slides and songs, just to make it very, very attractive to the audience. So technology has helped a lot. The kind of images we created then and the ones we are creating now, you can see that people have access to a lot of references. Like for example, if you go to Pinterest or you go to Google or any of your these image generating websites, you see a lot of ideas, pictures of other people that you can, leverage your design on. So those has been very, very helpful. Then when you talk about the effect of technology on the other side, because you put out your work out there, it's already on the digital space. You no longer have that control of who distributes it and where it goes. So a lot of people also misappropriate that opportunity, and then they copy your
creative works. And they put so much you are
that space, and then you create something, your brainchild, something that you generated from the scratch. For example, I used to compose my own ideas. I get people sit together, and then I take pictures of them, and then I create my work. And then it will be very, very sad to see that someone else who doesn't know the story of what you have created, who doesn't know where the ideas came from, has copied, your concept. It happened to me once. I think there was this big organization here in Port Harcourt. They invited me and they wanted to use my works to decorate their space. So they asked me to submit proposals and images of my work, which I did. And then it turns out that they were not able to pay the price I told them. So, but then they went behind my back and then used another artist to do the same work. But unfortunately, yes, what they did was
very, very, disheartening was the fact that he gave the artist my portfolio.
and the artist had to copy, everything. And the one that paid me the most was the picture of my younger brother carrying my two little children on the bicycle, which I took by myself. And these are members of my family. And the guy painted my younger brother, making it look like an old man. And then my little children were looking very funny. And, it hurts me so badly that I see that picture hanging on the wall. It's not me creating it now. Someone else have created it using my family and my concept. And it's very annoying, to be honest.
Yeah, I understand. That's what creatives, tend to have. These are the stories that you hear about a lot in this space when works are not protected. So this is where I would, I'll bring in Rita, our honorable lawyer here.
So, given what Sada has said
about his work and what Innocent has said so far. I'm still going to ask more questions, but many creators focus heavily on creating, but not necessarily on protecting their work. What are the most important intellectual property concepts every creator should understand?
Okay. So for creatives, when you talk about intellectual property, copyright is like the major law that you focus on before you start considering other areas of law that interplay, like contracts, dispute resolution, tax, and the rest of them, right? So for creatives, if you're not, the moment you express your work, there are two foundations to protecting your work: originality and fixation. Fixation means that you've already expressed your ideas, because IP doesn't protect ideas. IP will protect what for Kalada, your pictures, for Somto, your animations, your scripts, the characters, and the rest of them. Now you have other types of IP such as trademark. Trademark will basically protect, say, the name of your visual art collections for that year. Same thing with your portfolio, your animations. Then you have what is known as industrial design, which will protect like aesthetic features if you have merchandise and the rest of them, right? Now, bringing it back to creators, if you do not document whatever you've created, that means you can't claim ownership, because he who creates is recognized as the initial author. However, it's the person that owns the work that now gets to commercialize it. So you have various exclusive rights, such as the right to reproduce, to distribute, publish, and the rest of them. Now, all of these copyrighted material all have exclusive rights that the law gives you. You now have or an artist, right? You now also have what is known as folklore, which will protect indigenous cultural works. Now, because you may not really be aware of what the law provides, so you don't really know what to do. So your regulatory body who you should be interacting with first is the Nigerian Copyright Commission. Then you have what is now known as your collecting society or collective management organizations, who basically act as middlemen between you and third parties who want to commercialize your work through licensing, right? So you have to assign your rights to those group of persons. So for musicians, those in audiovisual, that's cinematography, if you're in the film industry, you publish, you are also an artist like Innocent. They have various collective society.
Okay, I wanted to find out. So, if a creator now wants to protect their work, are they supposed to get a lawyer, or they can
walk into the copyright center? Where can you find this?
What sort of thing?
So at the moment, registrations are done online. So you can choose to register yourself, or you use a lawyer or a law firm that is based in IP to do that registration for you, because the cost is going to be different. If you do it yourself, it's cheaper. If you do it with a lawyer or a law firm, it's going to cost you money, because you have to pay for professional service and the rest of them. But other than that, you need to take your contract and documentation seriously, right? You help me to state who owns what. If you were commissioned to do the work, if it was done during employment, it was a one-off thing. I usually don't tell people to sell off, because it's better you license, because all of the copyrights last between 50 to 70 years, depending on type of copyright. Interestingly, the new copyright, not new anyways, it was 3 years ago, but the Copyright Act now has provision for anonymous and pseudo works. So until you publish it, your term of duration starts to count. Prior to that, nothing. So the NCC also
had like a case resolution. You can use it that is helps
creatives to solve their dispute. So it could be for royalty, licensing, or any other miscellaneous things that the commission may deem right. And they also recently went into a collaboration with the World Intellectual Property Organization Nigeria, or that's WIPO Nigeria, to create like an informal.
Say WIPO. What's WIPO?
WIPO is World Intellectual Property Organization. So they have a Nigerian office which the DG came into Nigeria last week to commission, and but they've been in Nigeria for at least I think a minimum of 4 years now. Yeah. So
Thank you so much for that. So, Somto, this question goes to you. What technologies or digital tools are currently creating the biggest opportunities for creators to protect, distribute, and monetize their work?
Say Scroll.
Scroll is something that we've been building, which gives creators the tools to generate images and video and audio, and also monetize them at a micro level. But in general, to start with your question, I think she already said everything about protecting creative work. So I'm just going to speak on, new technology that helps amplify creativity. I don't know if anyone has heard of this brand new thing nobody has ever done called AI. Yeah, it's finally, in my opinion, working in animation for the past 10 years, I'm going to give you a little snippet on what it takes to make 1 minute of animation, right? You're gonna need to hire a writer.
If people need to hire a writer to stop it, if you're not a writer yourself,
then you're gonna need to get an editor. You can also be the editor yourself, right? But one thing you're not is a storyboard artist. And after you get a storyboard artist, you're gonna need a character designer. And after you get a character designer, you're gonna need a concept artist. And after you get a concept artist, you're gonna need a background artist. 1 minute, right? You haven't gone past 1 minute yet. And after a concept artist, you're gonna get what they call a keyframe animator if you're doing 2D animation, right? The keyframe animator is gonna work with the colorist who is gonna color the work after he's keyframed it. And you have someone that's gonna do your shadow and lights, and you have a really special person called the compositor who does the composition. You realize in 1 minute of a production that you're making, you've spent about $30,000 and you've employed about
12 us. And it's very important because someone has
to do that work, right? But where you get the bottleneck is that we have no educational system for animation. So you're employing a bunch of people that are self-taught, and maybe the ones you really want to employ are working on jobs that you can't afford them to leave that job. So they take your job and work on your 1 minute animation for 8 months. And that's how you never make your 1 minute animated film, right? That's 10 years of experience talking. Today, through generative technology like ByteDance, Cdance 2.0, you can put that in a prompt and then you can generate that 1 minute in about 55 seconds if your internet is Nigerian internet, right? So I would say AI has really brought the industrial revolution for content.
Now, of course, it has the explosion of cost, right? Technically, AI
is this machine that has combed all the data of all the animation that we have struggled to make. Now imagine the pain of working on that, and it is puts it into this large language model that is able to understand camera detail, like every single cameraman that you've employed is able to you're able to look at an image and draw a path of a map, and you literally have a drone flying around, right? Right? And that's the reality we live in. It's so it's a double-edged sword. So as much as I'm excited
about AI as a tool that has really done amazing things or can do amazing things, and even the playing ground on the ability to produce at scale and capacity.
We just think about the flip side for your boss.
Whose data am I benefiting off for this 1 minute that I've generated in 20 seconds to 55 seconds, right? And how sustainable is this medium of production? Is it going to be a bubble that bursts? I don't think so, because Elon Musk is flying all the data centers to space, right? So, the water problem and the cooling problem of this computing is going to be solved in about a year or 2 years, right? So AI is not going to drink all our water. We're still going to have water on Earth, right? But yeah, I would say AI is really a tool that has revolutionized creativity. It has the capacity to create production at scale where we can finally begin to see
all the fantasy anime, cartoon, anime, coach, yeah,
that we've always dreamed about. We have the capacity to do that now. People are doing that. We are doing that at the lab, and applying that to our production cycle. But there's also a risk of it creating redundancy in the kind of stories that we tell, being that unless the AI has new things to steal, pardon my French, unless the AI has new things to steal, then we're all going to be making projects that eventually would look the same. If it doesn't look the same in visual language or character design, it might look the same in the way that it moves. So yeah.
Okay, so now you just said something. So based off of that, so how do you now have ownership? If you create something, I create something, you've asked AI
to generate something that has similar work. About the idea generating. So now
who owns that?
So far at the lab, we haven't essentially seen similar works, because everybody, in as much, would generate something different. Every time it generates an image, it tries to generate it anew. Like if I open a new chat and I put a description, the exact same description in my ChatGPT, ChatGPT Image 2 is the best image generator model so far, right? Before it was Nano Banana, but not anymore, right? And if I put that in my ChatGPT and I put the exact same description, it's going to give me a different image every single time. So it's going to be very difficult. But in the soul of the work, in the essence of the work, it feels the same. I don't know how to explain it. But as an artist, you might kind of understand where I'm really coming
from.
Metadata.
Okay.
Basically, when I create different content, on the back end, you have the originator, where it was made and everything. That's what the internet says,
Yeah.
or what we see. When I make pictures, when I create pictures and I post online, or maybe on my Instagram or TikTok, what the algorithm see is the algorithm, or who made this or who made this. So there are different apps where it can be flagged if it's being copied and posted somewhere. But just that modern apps now, they tend to remove most of those metadata.
So I think
That's what she.
let me
that's what she
ask you that
okay.
from
Yeah.
the legal perspective, right? Ownership will depend on first
First creator.
right? However, in relation to AI conversation, different
So I think so basically, what the show will say, ownership
will be assigned to a human. But because AI is non-human, that conversation has to go to the court who will now determine that, right?
Yeah.
So presently in the US, if you want to file a copyright, you have to put a disclaimer. Because of the case of Zara of the Dawn, she had applied to copyright her work, which she used an AI tool but did not disclose. Now, the US Copyright Office approved her registration. Then she goes on Twitter to say, I have the first AI copyrighted work in the world. And the US Copyright said, no, your application did not state that you used AI.
Yeah.
So they gave her a partial registration and asked her to reapply, which raised up several conversations. Now, prior to Desire of the Dawn case, you have the monkey selfie case. If a photographer goes for photo, takes the camera and takes a picture of a selfie, and he goes, "This picture belongs to me." Now, the law says who expressed it owns it. But in this case, the person that expressed it is an animal, and we do not recognize animal as the owner of an IP. Now, in South Africa, you have a case called the Davos AI. You use AI to generate it, and you applied to get a patent, and that patent was rejected. Now, I have a controversial view that because it came from Africa, that was going to be protested. And then several other cases are built on that, but focusing more on copyright. In China, I think the case is called Li, where the court held that if you use an AI tool, the AI and yourself can be co-owners, right? In jurisdictions like the UK, they are still debating whether they should allow AI companies to actually train
first. So for us to get a license, actually train your
body and use your copyright is another thing. So the owner is the one, like I stated, that can determine how his exclusive right, which the law gives him, can be used. Without that, that is an infringement, right? However, you have a provision or a defense known as fair dealing in Nigeria or fair use, where you can say, I'm using your work but not for commercial purpose, but you have to stick to those requirements as stated. So if you want to read about it, it's Section 20 of the Copyright Act. So I'm going to say in relation to ownership, your jurisdiction should guide you. And in Nigeria at the moment, we do not recognize non-humans as owners of copyrighted work or an IP. I came across an interesting concept, I think today, called cognitive property, which recognizes human because of the contribution. But then, what are those nuances of AI that now makes that conversation as to who owns the outputs when you put in the prompt at the end of the day? Is it going to be the human that has to think of,
I know now.
scraping the data and getting the output that you eventually do? So everything depends on your jurisdiction.
It wasn't factored in the Copyright Act. Yeah,
It's tricky, right?
Okay.
Because the law says the person that creates the work owns the work.
Okay.
It does not define who an owner is, which is the lacuna. But if we were to argue this in courts, I mean, there are ways you can always go around this, right? So it will be an interesting day in court if we do get a Nigerian case.
Okay.
Okay.
Fantastic. Innocent, we'll bring this back to you. I know you're not doing the AI things. You're painting, your hard-earned time and all, quick. So I would ask you this question. What mindset and
strategies should artists adopt to visibility while preserving
the value and integrity of their work? Now we just talked about AI, so yeah.
So I completely discourage the artists from using AI to generate images and also just copying it the way it is. All right. So I will advise that people, when they generate these images online or through the AI app, you don't just try to copy everything that the AI has given to you. You have to find a way to manipulate it so that it becomes your own original. But the most important thing for every artist to do is to own the image.
That's when you fully take it here. Fully look at it.
Or way to enhance it. You have to originally create your own image. That's the only way. Originality is the only thing that can never be copied. If somebody is copying your work and he doesn't know the story behind your work, then the person is just wasting their time. But the other thing you can do is to, while you're trying to increase your visibility, you don't always post high resolution images online because people can copy that. You also try to document and date, all your work, the processes, the way you do it, and then tell the world what you're doing and why you're doing it. So that kind of limits somebody who wants to copy. And also use things like watermarks as well. So in areas where it cannot be cropped out, you use your watermarks to preserve your pieces as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Khaled, I remember you said metadata, and you've also mentioned
watermark. So, yes.
Rounding up, what practical steps would you recommend to emerging creators who want to build sustainable and commercially viable careers in today's digital economy? What are these steps that you'd advise?
So, practical steps, same thing I said earlier on, metadata. I had a case with an airline company.
Name withheld.
I won't call the name of the company. To do a website, to design their website. So I was traveling back to Port Harcourt from Abuja, and I saw I went to their site to book my flight, and I saw my picture with my watermark.
With your watermark?
With my watermark, yes.
So what will you say about that, Innocence? But please pause on that. What would you say?
Well, the thing is, I'm so sorry that happened, bro. But like I always say this now, where in front of everybody, Innocent Chike is a brand that I've been trying to build this brand very long. If you mess up with me, I will see you. My images are very particular to me, and they mean a lot to me. It's my story, it's my experience. It has everything about me all written all over it. So, so sorry that happened, bro. But you got to collect a lot of money for that.
I didn't take so much money. I sued them. I took a picture. Different lawyers, and one found it. He found it interesting, and he was like, he would take up on the case. It took about 1 year, and I was asking for 10 million, but I was paid 3.5.
Wow.
Yeah, so we shared the law firm took 40% and I took 60%. And I have another case again ongoing.
I think
so the measure is basically you just watermark your pictures and use metadata.
Metadata.
Let me also add to that because we had I think that was 4 years ago. So everybody here knows Kelechi Iheanacho, right? And if you're active on Twitter now X, there's a sports journalist called Puja Media, and Puja Media actually took a picture of Kelechi Iheanacho during one of their training, and then he put his watermark, right? Kelechi moved that watermark and posted it. Puja was not having any of it. Now, what did Kelechi do? Kelechi went and pinned that post. Now, under the Copyright Act, if somebody bypasses, so it's called technological protection measures, which is what your watermark and your metadata does, right? If somebody bypasses that, you have the right to actually sue, right? You also have provisions for curing that, where you can report that post to the internet service provider they notify them. I think we find it commonly with YouTube. I also had an experience last year where I did see my image somewhere for a speaking engagement that I wasn't invited. But the name there wasn't my name, but it was this particular picture. So there are ways you can actually go about enforcing your right and also monitoring it. So you can send what is known as a cease and desist letter. Informally, you can do that yourself. But if you want like a so that's the first step, right? Failure to comply, then start considering going to court. Right. You now also have the takedown mechanism, which was introduced in the Copyright Act. In the US, is known as the takedown notice, which is the DMC for all platforms. Right. So if that doesn't work, you can now use the Gen Z method, which is set your ring lights, turn on your light, and drag the image light of that person. It does work because Living in Bondage had featured an artist's work, and this is where Innocent comes in. They had contacted her to do some of the artwork for Living in Bondage Part 2. But along the way, they terminated her transaction. And then the movie comes out, and I think she watches the movie a year later, and she sees her art in the movie. So she goes on X, and she was tagging and talking. I thought, like, you're tagging the wrong figure. But I believe they settled out of court. So in such instance, sometimes going to court might not be the best thing. So which is why, like I mentioned, that NCC has a dispute resolution mechanism. You can explore. So we also have a multi-door courthouse in Rivers State where you can also explore to resolve your dispute either through mediation. Arbitration, like I will tell people, is for huge commercial transactions. If it's not in the hundreds of millions, please opt for mediation or negotiation, right? Now, if it's a contract-based issue like innocent had. Maybe you sign an agreement, you drop portfolio. I'm aware of a case that someone sued a telecom because they used his concept. And how he won that case was there was proof of documentation. They were able to trace emails. He sent the project using DHL, so they could not deny that they did not have assets. A few years ago as well, an artist had made a recommendation to First Bank. He redid their
logo cost of 450 pesos. And according to him, that label was similar
to what he had proposed. Now, did he win that case? He did not, because it's easy to say your work is similar, but if you cannot prove that that person had access to your work, it's going to be difficult for you to actually say, okay, this person saw my work, took his time and intentionally decided that he was going to reproduce my work without my consent. So that's just
before they tell us that this is turning into a law panel. So, and as the last question, this will be to sum to the last question. Looking ahead, what trends do you believe will most significantly shape ownership, authenticity, and value creation in the creative economy? 1 minute, please.
Say that again.
Looking ahead, what trends do you believe will most significantly shape ownership, authenticity, and value creation in the creative economy? 1 minute.
I would say, first and foremost, I feel like
building intellectual property
Without me,
is deeper than like a single image or maybe a scene that you generated from a video. You know, there's so much that goes into a story and building a universe that helps you create an encompassing IP, you know, when it comes to storytelling. I also feel like distribution methods are drastically going to change in our future. The way we consume content is changing. Nobody wants to sit down in front of a TV for over an hour anymore. You know, I realize when I watch a series or I watch a movie, it's usually background music. But the times that I'm completely locked in something is when it's really short form. So I feel we live in an age of creators where the studio system is going to break down. The TV system and the network system is going to break down.
Vita don't go. I said they didn't want these guys. They say
They're running on stockholders' money anyway. There's no way Netflix, if they were running a legitimate brick and mortar business, that they'll still be surviving now. You know, the reason why Netflix exists is because people like us are stockholders in their stock, right? And they're a publicly traded company. So I feel like content is going to become more independent. Storytelling is going to take a more independent role and more minimal micro dramas, micro audio, comic panels instead of comic books. So the cost of production is going to go down in a huge way, and technology is going to amplify the scale at which people can produce, you know, and through technology we can protect it.
Okay, fantastic. So I think that we're done before we get pulled out. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next year.